Before we do anything else, though, what's this? 2 Godzilla movies in as many years after a decade-long dry spell? Relieved only by the mediocrity of Gareth Edwards' production? My cup runneth over. Especially since this one's an anime. Granted, Shin Gojira sure felt a lot like an anime. But, in a first for the series, Godzilla Monster Planet, or Planet of Monsters, I've seen both translations, so I'm just going to go ahead and put both in the tags, is an actual, no shit, everyone on this side of the Pacific is just going to dismiss it as a cartoon, anime. Directed by the guy who did Knights of Sidonia, another 3D animation from Polygon Pictures that's localized by Netflix, and written by one of the most notorious dudes in the business, Gen Urobuchi. Affectionately known to those of us who've watched more than 2 of his shows as the Oru Butcher. And you don't have to get very far in this to see why. Within 5 minutes, we're watching our protagonist helplessly watch his grandfather die in an entirely predictable shuttle explosion. Then, after the credits, we flash back to our protagonist watching his parents die at the hands, claws, well, atomic breath, really, of Godzilla. The Oru Butcher strikes hard and fast when he's only got 90 minutes to spare. Said protagonist is Haruo Sakaki, a young captain aboard the Ark ship Eritrum. In this wacky parallel dimension, yet another thread in the ever-expanding Godzilla multiverse, giant monsters began attacking cities in, quote-unquote, the last summer of the 20th century. And I'll let all you pedants out there argue over whether they mean the summer of 1999 or the summer of 2000. Both were equally horrible for their own special reasons, and both had me wishing for giant monsters to rise from the sea and destroy human civilization. Godzilla was the worst of them, as usual, and all attempts to stop him, even those aided by apparently helpful visiting aliens, the EXIF, failed, as usual. Eventually, and here's the new part, abandoning Earth became humanity's only good option, much like in Knights of Sidonia. But 20 years of searching for another habitable planet have turned up precisely dick. Food and water supplies are running low, and the Eritrum's last 4,000 or so souls are starting to give up hope. Our story proper opens with Captain Sakaki, and I think they mean Army Captain as opposed to Navy Captain, since he's not that high up on the ship's pecking order, which, much like modern Japan, seems to be a calcified gerontocracy, thrown into the brig for pushing a conspiracy theory that the ship's central committee wants to kill all the old people. Haruo's wrong about that. Maybe. But the ship's priest Mephius thinks he might be right about something else. That they should turn this whole sorry shit show around. Return to Earth, and kill Godzilla. Haruo's even come up with a plan that Mephies is all too happy to publish on the ship's internet, annoying the hell out of the Central Committee and forcing them to turn the warp drive back on. When they get back to Earth, though, the magic of relativistic time dilation means that, even though only 20 years have passed for the ship's inhabitants, 20,000 years have passed on planet Earth. And not only is Godzilla still alive, but the Earth's biosphere has begun to adapt to him. Electromagnetic fog clouds the air. The flora is turning into something closer to metal than chlorophyll, and within minutes, a flock of flying, dragon-looking things attack the landing party, causing unexpected casualties. Will Haruo's plan still succeed? Even with most of their equipment wrecked, Godzilla bearing down on them, and the fact that Haruo's a known troublemaker that only Mephi seems to actually like? And will some horrific twist occur at the last possible minute, ruthlessly crushing everyone's hopes and dreams? Well, since this is a Gen Urobuchi script, that last one's a pretty foregone conclusion. Monster Planet is a decent enough introduction to his work, fairly representative, at least in the superficialities, though I'm obliged to recommend Psycho Pass over this. It's like if Minority Report and Equilibrium had a baby. Better characters, too. Though that might be a factor of the amount of time I've spent with them. And the fact that AYTIWS is a series, as opposed to a movie, and more than that, it's a series that's complete. At least Haruo gets to display some human emotion from the start. Even if it's just anger. That puts him ahead of the pack of Orobuchi protagonists, believe it or not. He's proactive, even when he's in the brig, and his world is fascinating enough that I was left wanting to see more of it. Which is always a good thing. Right? Maybe it's because I just watched Blade Runner again. But I swear, there are some serious Philip K. Dick influences creeping around the edge of this thing. As there were in AYTIWS. This is Godzilla as, if not hard sci-fi, then certainly harder sci-fi than usual. We got your warp drives, and your mech suits, and your holograms, and plenty of technobabble. The Exif even have their own religion. That may or may not be part of a plot to brainwash humanity. That's brought up as a joke, but then again, Mephis mentions Mechagodzilla. Try that one 3 times fast. And that's not a joke, that's a sequel hook. The novelty of this setting is nice, but it's too bad that it necessitates devoting the whole first act to exposition. Mostly getting us up to speed on this wacky parallel dimensions history and the Aratram's eternal politics. A lot of time spent oogling the technology of this not too distant, but oh wait, actually really distant future. And I'm not sure how much of that is our director's fault, or how much of it is the fault of our corporate overlords, who see anime as an overpriced toy delivery system before they see it as anything else. I'm not too up on the work of Koban Shinzuno. I only watched Nights because, well, A, it was on Netflix, and B, as you might have noticed, I'm a sucker for stories about giant robots. Especially ones that end up fighting Godzilla. The asymmetry of 20-foot-tall mechs fighting Godzilla's 300-feet-plus bulk is a carryover from Sidonia, whose aliens could shapeshift into forms the size of cities. Also, socially isolated protagonist pulls his head out of his ass and rises to a cause that's greater than himself, but that's basically just mech anime. There is something to be said for fighting against a future of hopeless resignation to horrible circumstances. Gods know I'm feeling that one. And Haruo says it in his big motivational speech after he becomes leader of this doomed expedition due to everyone above him dying. It's the first time we see him display passion for something besides killing Godzilla. Not just because the Big G killed his parents, though, duh. And I did spend an inordinate amount of time waiting for him to go, "You killed my parents. Prepare to die." But also because Haruo figures Godzilla stole humanity's home from us. Killing our parents on a planetary scale, you might say. Dooming us all to a life without pride, or joy, or hope. As he was in his last film, Godzilla is entropy incarnate. The all-consuming force of total destruction. Stare into its hollow eyes and face the horror. It is inevitable. And we can either resign ourselves to this fact, or we can join with our friends and fellow shipmates and try to accomplish something greater than ourselves. All of which is interesting at first, but as time goes on, things get unfortunately flat. As is nearly every character who isn't Haruo. Mephis teases us with a little peek into the Exif's religious beliefs, and the fact that Godzilla isn't the first Category 5 kaiju they've seen wipe a sentient race off its homeworld. But again, it's just a tease. Like the fact that for something called Planet of Monsters, we only really see 2, Godzilla and the dragons, outside of brief cameos in flashbacks that you have to pause to visually comprehend. They didn't even do the obvious move that I expected them to do, that Gareth Edwards did in his first movie, Monsters. You know, son los monstros, They are the monsters, meaning we are the monsters, meaning the planet of monsters was Earth all along, and you maniacs, you finally did it! You blew it up! Damn you all to hell! Oh wait, I hear tell that hell is other people. The sudden but inevitable twist is pretty predictable too. So much so that I don't even feel like spoiling it, for once. As if the damn Wikipedia doesn't already spoil that this is the first act of a planned trilogy. Not that that's a bad thing, but still, there is a downside to these guaranteed trilogies. Why shoot for the moon the first time out when you've got 2 more rockets idling on the pad? Better to treat it like the first act of a movie. Get all the exposition out of the way. Establish all the rules that you can then go on to fuck with. And hope to God you still have some good ideas by the time you get to movie 3. When I started posting screenshots of this on the Twitters, one of my old friends asked if this was from 2014's Godzilla or the latest Toho. And that turned out to be a very good question. So, thanks, Professor. I feel the same way about this that I felt about Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. I don't hate it. There's not really that much to hate. But by the same token, there's not really that much to get excited about either. And what is there feels a lot like reheated leftovers from the director's previous work. It's like taking that last little bit of spaghetti sauce and just spreading it on a pizza. In the absence of the next 2 movies in this obvious trilogy, I'm left with a general sensation of meh. And that's the inevitable result of having a series go on as long as Godzilla's has. A handful are going to be standout awesomeness. A handful are going to be complete shit. And there's going to be a big fat middle section that's just meh. It's a good thing that doesn't matter to Netflix. As a de facto home video monopoly, they're not actually selling movies to the populace. They're selling millions of their subscribers' eyeballs to movie companies that are hungry for any kind of distribution system, especially now that theaters cost so damn much. Better to stay home and become part of the oh-so-lucrative turn the TV on in the background while you clean the house so you don't feel so alone demographic. A demographic Netflix has captured expertly, which is how they can go anywhere from $5 to $20 billion in debt and still stay afloat. Because that's how the entertainment industry actually works. Cheers, kids. So, as with so many other things, I guess it's going to take 2 more years before we find out how this trilogy is going to shake down. And anyway, there's more Godzilla in the world, and no feeling of meh will live in me as long as that great joy. And I hope all my subscribers will forgive this little diversion away from the announced plans. I mean, a Godzilla movie became available in my market. I couldn't help myself. But don't worry. Next up, we're gonna be looking at Covenant. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And there's the inevitable Patreon, of course.